Good evening. I'm Pat Mannon, and I'm joined tonight by Brother Miguel Garcia. We are delighted to have you watching tonight. We are continuing this evening the book of Daniel in our study of it. We took a break from it the last couple of weeks. If you'll remember, a couple of Wednesdays ago, I dealt with a question from one of our faithful viewers up in Idaho who had questions about the Lord's Supper, and we took time to deal with that, and especially the subject of closed communion. Last week, I was sick and unable to be here with you, and so this week everything's a lot better, and so we're hopeful to be able to complete a good broadcast with you tonight. A great study, we hope. We're entering an exciting part of Daniel, friends, and I'm so glad that you're with me, and I want you to stay with me because we're starting chapter 7, and from chapter 7 on through chapter 12, the last 6 chapters are all visions of Daniel. Now, the first 6 chapters, I told you the book has a natural division in it. Chapters 1 through 6 deal with Daniel and his companions, their faithfulness to God, and God's blessings upon them. And I'll expand on that idea in just a moment a little bit more. The next half of the book, chapters 7 through 12, are visions. And these visions, if you will, fit back into the first 6 chapters. Daniel, you see, lived through 2 world empires. Not all the way through the second one, but he lived and labored in 2 different empires for 2 different world rulers. He was a wise man, a counselor, and such for the kingdom of Babylon. All the time that he was a captive in Babylon, he served in that capacity. Then when Medo-Persia conquered Babylon, Daniel continued on as one of the wise men in that kingdom. And so you find these visions were visions that occurred, 2 of them. There's 4 of them left that we will cover in these last 6 chapters. 4 visions. I'll talk about them in a minute. 2 of them were during the time that Babylon ruled under the reign of Belshazzar. And the other 2 occurred under the reign of the Medes and Persians. One of them, Darius the Mede was reigning, and the other one, Cyrus the Persian, was reigning. So they fit into Babylon and Medo-Persia. And so chapters 7 through 12, remember, just fold back into chapters 1 through 6 because they have a place there. Obviously, they have to be separated because you can't stop in the midst of chapters 1 through 6 and insert a vision here and a vision there. They're just kept separate as the book continues, but we have to understand they do fold backwards into it. Now, since we're in chapter 7 tonight, and this is, by the way, part 8 of this series. I don't know how many parts it will take for us to cover it. On chapter 7, I'll be with you for 2 or 3 parts of this study because we're going to be dealing with something that a lot of people are curious about today, and that's the subject of the beast. The same beast that we read about in Revelation is also revealed here in Daniel 7. So we're going to study both Daniel and Revelation, and we'll do an extensive study of this beast. I'll tell you more in just a moment. Let's read first the 7th chapter of Daniel, Daniel 7, beginning at verse 1 through 28. We read that in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. And 4 beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear. And it raised up itself on one side, and had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth, and it devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was said, and the books were opened. And I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame. As concerning the rest of the beast, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days. And they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by, and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts which are 4 kings, that is, they're 4 kingdoms, which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom, and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I would know the truth of the 4th beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Thus he said, now listen to this, friends. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. And another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand unto a time and times and dividing of time. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. Now, as we look back, friends, over the first 6 chapters of Daniel, we've seen, first of all, in chapter 1, that God is a protector of the captives. Chapter 2, he is a revealer of the future. In chapter 3, he was the Lord of fire. Remember the fiery furnace. In in chapter 4, he is the humbler of the proud. Remember, Nebuchadnezzar was driven from his kingdom and given a beast heart and made to graze grass like on oxen until he learned that God ruled in the affairs of men and that God gives kingdoms to whom he will. And then the 5th chapter, we got a picture then of God as the avenger of his honor, because here's Belshazzar throwing a drunken feast using the vessels of the temple. God's anger was kindled against him, and that night he died and lost his kingdom to the Medes and Persians. Chapter 6, God we see right here is the Lord of lions. The Lord of lions. He shut the lions' mouths when Daniel was cast into the den. So we've seen him then as a revealer of the future, the Lord of fire, the humbler of the proud, the avenger of his honor, the Lord of lions, and of course all these other things. Now we come to the last 6 chapters of Daniel, chapters 7 through 12 that I mentioned. And in these 6 chapters, friends, are 4 major divisions. 2 of the divisions occurred when Babylon was ruling and Daniel served them. The other 2 of the divisions occurred when Medo-Persia was ruling and Daniel served them. These visions are as follows. The first vision that we'll study tonight occurred during the first year of Belshazzar. In other words, Babylon was ruling when Daniel had the vision of the 4 beasts that came up out of the sea. The second one in chapter 8 is a vision that we call the vision of the ram and goats. And this occurred in the 3rd year of Belshazzar, that is, Babylon was ruling when this vision occurred also. So chapter 7, vision 1, chapter 8, vision 2, occurred when Babylon ruled. The third vision that we read about here now in the last 6 chapters is chapter 9. That's the vision of the 70 weeks of Daniel. And of course, that occurred during the first year of Darius the Mede. So the Medes and Persians were ruling then, and specifically Darius the Mede was ruling there first. The last vision, and it's covered in chapters 10 through 12, is a vision of the last days of the Jewish people. And of course, that occurred in the 3rd year of Cyrus the Persian. So again, Medo-Persia was ruling. Let me name these again. There are 4 major visions left in this last 6 chapters of Daniel. The first vision, the 4 beasts that come up out of the sea. Babylon was ruling. Second vision, the vision of the ram and goats. Again, Babylon was ruling. The third vision, the 70 weeks of Daniel. Darius the Mede, Medo-Persia was ruling. The last vision, the 4th, is covered in chapters 10 through 12. 10 through 12 is all one huge vision. And 10 through 12 is the vision of the last days of the Jewish people. And Daniel got this vision in the 3rd year of the reign of Cyrus the Persian. So Medo-Persian was ruling on it. So that's kind of how the book lays out for us now, and I wanted you to have that information. We have read the 7th chapter of Daniel, and we're introduced to beast. And of course, that causes us to remember the book of Revelation, doesn't it? People love to talk about the beast. He's the so-called Antichrist. He appears in the imaginations and writings of every generation, friends. And in times past, he's been declared to be a lot of world leaders throughout history. Men such as Hitler and Stalin, and I remember when Gorbachev, that ruled Russia, ruled the Soviet Union, had that funny birthmark on his head up here, and that was the mark of the beast. And we've heard that President Obama was the beast, and we hear all kinds of things about who the beast may be. All of these theories have been spawned. Every generation produces them. A man named Hal Lindsey, who promoted premillennialism, believed that the man was alive in Europe. And he wrote in 1970, "I believe that he is alive somewhere in Europe." Now, friends, that was 50 years ago. And if he was alive in Europe then, he's beginning to get a little older, isn't he? Lindsay's been proven wrong time and time again. I don't know why anybody listens to the man, and yet he's still on television. Sometimes I will see him late at night on inspirational channels and such. So, lots of theories about this beast. He's called the Antichrist. He is not the Antichrist, but nonetheless, that's the name that's been given to him. And suppose that we just read Revelation 13 because it mentions this beast. And incidentally, Daniel and John in Revelation saw the same beast. They saw the same. You cannot really understand who the beast is unless you study Daniel and Revelation. If you're in the book of Revelation studying the beast, you need Daniel 7. If you're in Daniel 7 studying the beast, you need Revelation 13 and Revelation 17. So in this study, we're going to combine all three of these. We're going to use Daniel 7, we're going to use Revelation 13, we're going to use Revelation chapter 17. And we'll do a thorough study of who this beast is, since both Daniel and John saw him, and he occupies a great part of chapter 7 in Daniel. Daniel was especially intrigued by this beast. Of the four, the fourth beast really got his attention. And so more things are revealed to us about this fourth beast than any of the three that came before it. Let's read Revelation 13 and we'll go back to Daniel 7 and do our study. In Revelation 13, verse 1, John writes, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea." Now pay attention here, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Watch verse 2. "The beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority." Now where have we read about a lion? Where have we read about a bear? Where have we read about a leopard? Daniel 7. That was the first 3 beasts. The first one was like a lion. The second one like a bear. The third one was like a leopard, wasn't he? And now when John sees this beast in Revelation, he has attributes of all 3 of these things in Daniel 7. Did you notice? John tells us that the beast that I saw was like a leopard, that he had the feet of a bear and his mouth was the mouth of a lion. So he names them leopard, bear, and lion. He's looking backward at these. Daniel was looking forward. He went lion, bear, leopard. John went leopard, bear, lion, because they're looking from different perspectives, you see. Now verse 3, I don't want to confuse you there, but I want you to notice that what John is seeing, that's what Daniel saw. "I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and the deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies." Now we saw that in Daniel 7, this mouth speaking great things. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. If any man hath an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. And I beheld another beast. Here's a second one. I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him. And he causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, or 666. We've all heard that old number, haven't we? So there's John's description then of the beast from Revelation chapter 13. You know, John tells us here in 13 that verse 1 and 2, he said, I stood upon the sand of the sea. And I want to remind you this again, friends. And I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And upon his horns, or upon his heads, the name of blasphemy. The beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and seat and great authority. So when John sees this beast, he says it's like a leopard, it has the feet of a bear, it has the mouth of a lion. It is like a leopard, bear, and lion. This fourth beast is a composite. Here's what I want you to see. It is a composite of the first 3 beasts before it. So when we learn who the first 3 beasts are, this fourth one is a composite of all of them. It's like all 3 of the others rolled into this fourth, who is so diverse and so much stronger than them. And so John sees that. Now, if you're going to study the beast and things about it, you need to go back to Daniel chapter 2 for just a minute. Let's do that. We'll come back to Daniel 7, of course, in just a minute, but Daniel 2, because I want to call your attention back to this image over here on the left side. Do you remember in chapter 2 when we studied the kingdom? We studied Nebuchadnezzar's dream, and he had a dream in which he saw this great, terrible image. The image had a head of fine gold. Its breast and its arms were of silver. Its belly and its thighs were of brass. Its legs were of iron, and its feet were part of iron and part of clay. He saw a little stone that was cut out of a mountain without hands that smote that image on the feet. Notice, it hit the feet. And this image was broken. Excuse me. It fell. Daniel said that it was like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, that the iron, the brass, the silver, the clay, the gold were broken to pieces together and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And he said the stone that smote that image became this great mountain and filled the whole earth. Now that's what he tells Nebuchadnezzar that he dreamed, and Nebuchadnezzar knew it was. So Daniel began to interpret that for him in Daniel 2, verses 31 to 45, and we studied that interpretation. He tells Nebuchadnezzar that God has given him a great kingdom, that wherever men dwell, the beasts of the field, the fowls of the heavens, he said, he's given in your hands and made you ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. So the head of gold in this vision was Babylon. Then he says, after thee, tells Nebuchadnezzar, after thee shall arise another kingdom, this one of silver here. He said that kingdom will be inferior to you. He's talking about Medo-Persian. So when you divide this image into sections, the head of gold is Babylon, the breast and the arms of silver, Medo-Persia. He said there'll be another third kingdom of brass that'll bear rule over all the earth. That's the belly and the thighs of brass right here. And that's Greece. That's Greece. Head of gold, Babylon. Medo-Persia, breast and arms of silver. Belly and thighs of brass, Greece. He said the fourth kingdom would be strong as iron. This is Rome. This is the Roman Empire. And he said just like iron breaks things in pieces, this kingdom's going to break things in pieces and bruise. It's going to subdue everything. But he said it's got weaknesses in it because there's iron mixed with clay in it. And of course, as we studied when I took you through this, the clay that was mixed with the iron were some of these small kingdoms that Rome had conquered that never really did serve Rome faithfully. Their heart was not in it. They really never gave their allegiance to Rome. Judea was one of those kingdoms. The Jews never did love to submit to Rome. They just wouldn't. And consequently, Rome crushed them later on. But that was the weakness in the Roman Empire. The little stone down here that struck the feet, we noted, was the kingdom of God ruled by Christ. And notice it struck the feet, and the feet are Rome, so it came in the days when Rome ruled. And I took you through a study of the kingdom and showed you that it was a spiritual kingdom, that it was not a worldly kingdom at all. Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. So we studied many things about the kingdom, that it was at hand when Christ was here on earth. That would come in the lifetime of some of those to whom Jesus spoke. We studied that Paul and John and the church at Colossae and the 7 churches of Asia were in that kingdom. And we discovered that it is within you, that it is righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Ghost, that it is not of this world, that it is in fact the church. And so I showed you all of those things, and we proved that from Scripture. But so these 4 kingdoms here were, in this image that Nebuchadnezzar dreamed about, were 4 coming world kingdoms coming in succession after the other, beginning with Babylon, which was already in existence. Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. And a lot of detail is given to Rome. Now, when we get to chapter 7, friends, John's going to see the same thing. Or excuse me, Daniel. Daniel, in his vision, will see these same kingdoms. And that's what Daniel 7 is all about. Now let's go to the text of Daniel 7, because he's seeing just exactly what Nebuchadnezzar dreamed about in chapter 2. Daniel will see 4 beasts come up out of the sea, diverse one from another. Let's read about them now. Daniel 7, verse 1 to 3. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. As I said, these are the same 4 kingdoms that Nebuchadnezzar saw in chapter 2 in his dream that Daniel interpreted. When you drop down to verse 17 in Daniel, Daniel is told these great beasts which are 4 are 4 kings, that is 4 kingdoms, which shall arise out of the earth. In verse 23, Daniel will be told this, thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth. So you see, these are not beasts at all. They represent kingdoms, world kingdoms, coming in succession. The 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth. I'll talk more about that a little bit later. I want you to see that these beasts are actually kingdoms. Now remember, I told you that the normal way we interpret the Bible is that we interpret it literally. That's the first thing you set out to do when you interpret the Bible. When you study, you You take things literal unless doing so involves you in a contradiction or an absurdity. When it does, you know that it's symbolic. It's not to be taken literal. And that's the way Revelation and Daniel are. And I have told you in the past that when you study apocalyptic speech, this symbolic language, and these visions are highly symbolic. These symbols that are in them represent things. So what you tell yourself is when you come to these symbolic visions of Daniel, what he writes is what he literally saw. Yes, he literally saw four beasts come up out of the sea, but what he saw is not what they are. We've seen the beast or kingdoms, see. So he's seeing four kingdoms arise, four world empires in succession. That's what he's actually seeing. So you say to yourself as you look at these visions in Daniel and in Revelation, this is what he saw. Now, what does it mean? See, that's the way you have to approach it. You use your same common sense and good judgment and such things as that, other passages of Scripture and what have you. Context and remote context and all of that's factored in. But you tell yourself, this is symbolic. This is what he literally saw, all right. Now, what does it mean? See, Revelation and parts of Daniel, friends, are just picture books. And when you solve the picture, you solve the message in it. So we've got to know what the picture means. Let me give you modern day examples before I read on. If you're looking Sunday morning on a sports page, whether it's electronic page or whether it's a newspaper, you might see a picture, and it might have a longhorn steer that's been run over by a wagon. When you see that picture, you know what it means. It means Oklahoma beat Texas. If you were to see a wagon torn up by a longhorn steer, and the canvas just shredded and the lumber in that wagon and the wheels all broken apart and it flattened on the ground, you know Texas beat Oklahoma. If you're in the political section and you're reading and you notice there's a cartoon in there, an elephant has just stomped a donkey, you know the Republicans beat the Democrats. You see, when you know what the pictures mean, you understand the message they convey. And that's what I'm trying to tell you about Daniel and Revelation. That's as simple as I could make it for you. They are pictures. Literally what Daniel saw, or literally what John saw. They just represent things. They're symbolic, just like the longhorn and the wagon. They're not literally Oklahoma. Oklahoma's not a wagon. Texas is not a longhorn. Republicans are not an elephant. Democrats are not a donkey. Not a literal donkey. But nonetheless, these are the pictures that we use to name them. And when we understand all of this, we understand the message. Now, with those things in mind, let's go back to the book of Daniel. We see that he saw four beasts. But we're told later in the chapter that these beasts are actually kingdoms. So now we know he's seeing kingdoms. And we're going to look at what he literally saw, friends, but we're going to talk about what they mean. See, that's what we really need to know. We need to know the message, don't we? Let's do that. Verse 4. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given unto it. Now this lion here represents the Babylonian Empire, just like in chapter 2, the head of gold there in that image was Babylon. It's slowed down by the plucking of its wings. It had eagle's wings, but the wings got plucked, and that slowed it down. It was lifted up from the earth and made to stand up like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. What does that tell you? It takes us back to chapter 4 in Daniel, when Nebuchadnezzar got a beast heart, when he lost his kingdom, when he lost his mind and went berserk, and when he was turned out to graze with the oxen and ate grass like an ox. Remember, his hair grew out like eagle's feathers and his nails like claws. And the dew from heaven at night fell on him. And he stayed in that horrible condition, that state of insanity, until he finally learned that God rules in the affairs of men and that God gives kingdoms to whom he will. That Nebuchadnezzar didn't build Babylon. God allowed him to rule that empire. And when he learned that lesson, then his heart was changed, you see, and he gave glory to God instead of trying to take glory for himself. And that's what's meant here when it says a man's heart is given to him. His heart's changed. He goes from a beast to a man's heart, see. And so that reminds us of chapter 4. This is Babylon, no question about it. Now we know from history that Babylon was conquered by Medo-Persia. Obviously, the next beast is going to be Medo-Persia. So we're told in verse 5, and behold another beast, a second, like to a bear. We have a lion, now we have a bear. And it raised up itself on one side. That means one side of it was higher than the other one. And it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. So this is Medo-Persia here. It's a bear. It's strong, but it's slow moving here. And it raises up itself on one side, and that's the Persian dominance. You see, Media and Persia joined together to form this empire. But Persia was always the dominant element in it. It was the ruling side. So the bear is said to be raised up on one side. Daniel will see this same thing again in chapter 8. He will see a 2-horned ram, and it'll have 2 horns, and the horns are high, but one horn, he says, was higher than the other one. See, that's the shorter horn was the Medes, and the higher horn was Persia. Persia was always the ruling dominant side, okay? And so that's what he's seeing here, Medo-Persia, raised up on one side. It's got 3 ribs in the mouth of it. That tells us this thing's been devouring. It's been feeding. And it's been suggested these 3 horns here, or excuse me, ribs, were actually Egypt and Assyria and Syria. Now, they may well be because those were conquered, of course. But nonetheless, the 3 ribs just simply tell us this thing really conquers. And Babylon, or excuse me, Medo-Persia, was a conquering empire. In fact, when you go to the book of Esther, you learn that it ruled 127 provinces between India all the way to Egypt. Quite a dominant empire, after all. Now in verse 6, we get the third one. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. Picture a leopard who's very fast, and picture it now with 4 wings. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So we've got a third beast here like a leopard. This is Greece. Greece conquered Medo-Persia. See, you've got Babylon conquered by Medo-Persia, and Medo-Persia conquered by Greece. So a leopard, friends, is swift, but this leopard here's got 4 wings on its back. What does that tell you? This thing just flies. I mean, it moves swiftly. And this is a picture for us of Greece under Alexander the Great. Because Alexander the Great, the first king that ruled Greece there, moved very swiftly. His army did. In fact, Alexander the Great conquered a lot of the known world by the time he was 33 years old. He had conquered everything from Macedonia all the way over east to India. He wanted to go into India. His soldiers wouldn't fight anymore. They were sick of fighting. That's all they'd been doing. So Alexander the Great returned back to Babylon and headquartered there, and he died there at Babylon, drunken and of a fever, when he was 33 years old, already conquered most of the world. That's why this is pictured as a leopard with 4 wings. It is very swift. But it also had 4 heads. And these 4 heads represent 4 divisions of Greece. When Alexander the Great died, friends, his empire, Greece, split 4 different ways. And 4 of his generals took the kingdom and they divided it up. And these generals, I'll name them here for you. I've got them listed. I don't know if you can see the font. But the generals were Lysimachus, the second one Cassander, the third one Seleucus, the fourth one Ptolemy. And of course, they conquered various parts of that empire. I believe Lysimachus ruled Thrace, Cassander Macedonia, Seleucus ruled Syria, and the Ptolemies ruled Egypt. And so all of that empire then were divided up. These 4 heads are 4 divisions of Greece when Alexander the Great died. They are his 4 generals that took over. So there's the first 3 beasts, friends. See what Daniel's seeing in his vision? He's just seeing world kingdoms come. He saw Babylon, which existed then. That's the lion. He saw then a second one that was like a bear. That was Medo-Persia. He sees a third one like a leopard. Now do you understand when John saw his beast in Revelation? He said it was like a leopard. It was like Greece. He said it had the feet of a bear. It was like Medo-Persia. He said it had the mouth of a lion. It was like Babylon. This 4th beast, which will be Rome, I'll read about it in just a minute, because Rome conquered Greece. This 4th empire, this 4th kingdom, is a composite. It is Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece rolled into one, and so much more. And that's why John describes it like he did. It's all 3 of these first empires before it, all rolled into it. It is a monster of a kingdom, the strongest that the human race had ever seen up till that day. And nobody was able to whip Rome, not for a long time. And it existed as an empire for a long time until finally it just corrupted and really it fell from the inside out. It was just eaten up. It just rotted away from the inside. Moral decay. Let's read now about this 4th beast. We've got Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece. Now here's Rome. Verse 7. After this I saw in the night visions, behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. Remember the iron beast back in Daniel 2? This one's iron, see? This is Rome. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns. Now notice the 10 horns. Daniel said, I considered the horns. Behold, there came up among them another little horn. See, that made 11. Before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. So it lost 3 horns. It starts out with 10, it adds another one, making 11, and it loses 3, leaving 8. So when the dust settles on this beast, it's got 8 horns. Although at one point it had 11. It's got 8. And behold, in this horn, and he's talking about that little horn, that 11th that came up, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. I beheld till thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. I beheld then because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As concerning the rest of the beast, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I saw in the night visions, behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven. and came to the Ancient of Days. And they brought him near before him, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. We're not surprised with that, are we? If you and I had seen something like this in a vision, literally what he saw, it would scare us to death and it would trouble us greatly. And he's going to want to know what all this means. Now let's go back and look at this fourth beast. As I said, this is Rome. He said it's got great iron teeth. He said it devours and breaks in pieces. It stamped the residue with its feet. It's diverse from all the beasts before it, these other three. He said it's got 10 horns. He said he considered those horns, and another little horn came up. That made 11. You see, it had 10. But before that, 3 got plucked up by the roots. And that just leaves 8. And in that little horn that he saw were eyes. Eyes like the eyes of a man, and he saw a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. Friends, this will be a specific Caesar. His name is Domitian. I'll talk about all this in a minute and explain this. Then we read that the thrones were cast down and the Ancient of Days did sit. So God comes. And what takes place next is a judgment upon this beast. It is not the final judgment. But notice when God sits to judge here, he's pictured as garment white as snow. He's the Ancient of Days. His head's like the pure wool, his throne's a fiery flame, and his wheels burning fire. He rides the cherubim. They are his war wagon. And he rides them, and they are on fire. A fiery stream issues and comes forth from him. That's judgment. And then we read of thousands ministering unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. These are the angels. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. So this beast then is brought in remembrance before God. And he heard the words, the great words of this beast, is all of his boasting and bragging. And he beheld, he said, till the beast was slain and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. So this is a symbolic judgment on Rome. Rome would come along and be strong, yet God would judge her. And that's what's being pictured in these visions. Judgment upon Rome. Rome will have persecuted the church. It will have persecuted the saints. God will take vengeance. Justice will be served upon Rome. That's what is pictured here. Then he comes to the kingdom that we talked about in chapter 2. And I read this passage with you in chapter 2 when we studied there. Daniel said, I saw in the night visions. Behold, one like the Son of Man, this is Jesus, came with the clouds of heaven, there's his ascension, and came to the Ancient of Days, there's God the Father. Daniel said they brought him near before him, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom. Here's where Jesus rose from the dead, and after spending 40 days with his apostles, he ascended up, and a cloud took him out of their sight. He went to the Ancient of Days and was brought near before God, and a kingdom was given to him. Dominion and glory and the kingdom that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. And Peter, on the day of Pentecost, preached there in Acts 2 that God has made that same Jesus whom they crucified both Lord and Christ. He is Lord of lords and King of kings and rules his kingdom. It is a spiritual kingdom that'll never be destroyed. This is what Daniel saw. See, very similar things to what Nebuchadnezzar dreamed about back in chapter 2. Daniel said, when I saw this, I was grieved. I was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body. Well, not surprised, are we? We would be too. Let's continue on in chapter 7. And let's understand some more of this. See, John's going to see this same beast. And I'll show you that here in just a moment and tie all this together as we break tonight, where we could pick it up next week and it'll have clarity and unity, and we can just come back to it and take up where we were. I'll give you a short refresher next week and bring us up to speed on where we stopped and what we studied, and then we'll piece the rest of this together. Daniel 7 now, verse 16 to 28. Daniel says, I came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts which are four kings. Now this is kingdoms. 4 kings. We know that from verse 23. These are 4 kingdoms which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I would know the truth of the 4th beast. See, this is Rome, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints. So one of these horns, this 11th one that becomes the 8th after 3 are uprooted, he makes war with the saints. See? And he prevailed against them, Daniel said, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. So you see, Rome ruled. Rome persecuted the saints, and it did that until the Most High came, and then judgment was rendered against this beast. That's what we read back here in verses 7 through 15. Now watch verse 23 with me, friends. This is not rocket science. This is going to be very easy for you. You want to know who the 4th beast is? Look at this. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth and tread it down and break it in pieces. Look at this. I put it in red for you. The 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth. Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome. It's Rome. Isn't that simple? The 4th beast is the 4th kingdom. Babylon, like the lion, Medo-Persia, bear, Greece, leopard, Rome, the iron kingdom. The 4th beast is the 4th kingdom on earth. This is Rome. Now watch this, verse 24. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. These are the Caesars that rule Rome. These are the Caesars. The 10 horns you see out of this kingdom, out of Rome, are 10 kings. They're 10 rulers that shall arise. In other words, they rule Rome. See that? That's not hard, is it? The horns are kings. See? So, and he said, another shall arise after them. There's the 11th king. And he'll speak great words against the Most High. He'll wear out the saints of the Most High. See, so he's a Christian killer and persecutor. He'll think to change times and laws, and they'll be given into his hand until a time, times, and dividing of times. Now you'll see that period there, time, times, and dividing of times. Time, times, and dividing of times. That's 3.5. Sometimes it'll be 1,260 days. Sometimes it'll be 3.5 years. Sometimes it'll be 42 months. All of this is a symbolic period of time when God's people are persecuted yet protected. And in this case, the time, times, and dividing of time are simply the time that the saints are persecuted. It's a symbolic period. It's no definite length of years or any such thing. but it's the period of time that the church is persecuted by the Roman Empire, and specifically under Domitian's reign. They're given into his hand. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion. That's this 11th horn that becomes the 8th. They'll take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me. My countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. Now let's go back and review. The 4 beasts right here represent 4 successive great world kingdoms. These great beasts which are 4 are 4 kings, that is, 4 kingdoms, which shall arise out of the earth. The same 4 back in Daniel chapter 2. They are Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. The 4th beast is Rome. The 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth. That's Rome, see. The 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. These are the Caesars that rule Rome. Now I want to stop here and show you these Caesars right quick. And history just exactly fits what Daniel wrote. So when Daniel saw this beast, this 4th one, he told us the 4th beast is the 4th kingdom on earth. That's Rome. And he told us the 10 horns are 10 kings that shall arise. Now here they are, and I may have to move this where you can read all of them a little bit better. Friends, this is smaller font, and if you can enlarge it, or you may not need to on the device you're using, because some of you flash this over on large screen televisions, and the font is plenty large for you there. So whatever you're using, should you need to expand the font, feel free to enlarge it. But here's the 10 kings. The 10 horns, we're told, are 10 kings that shall arise. And I mentioned these are the Caesars. Here they are. Augustus Caesar ruled from 31 BC to 14 AD. Tiberius Caesar from 14 to 37 AD. Caligula, also called Gaius Caesar, from 37 to 41 AD. Claudius Caesar from 41 to 54 AD. Nero Caesar ruled. Nero ruled from 54 to 68. We'll talk some about Nero next week. When Nero died, there was kind of a uprising in Rome. Several men tried to get the throne, and they could not hold it successfully. They were all 3 murdered. The first was Galba. He tried to become Caesar. He lasted 7 months in part of the year 68 and a little bit of 69. The next one that tried it was a man named Otho. Otho lasted 95 days in the year 69 AD. Vitellius tried it next. He lasted 8 months in the year 69. So you've got Galba, Otho, Vitellius. You see, these are the 3 uprooted. That's just what Daniel saw. It's just as historically accurate as it can be. And that's why the critics of Daniel have criticized the book so much. That's why they want to tell us Daniel wasn't a prophet. This history is so accurate, and they know it fits secular history. This is what happened in Rome. 5 Caesars ruled through Nero, and then the uprising occurred where 3 could not get dominion. They were all uprooted. Just exactly what Daniel saw, 3 uprooted. So then Vespasian becomes the one that really gained control of Rome. And Vespasian Caesar ruled from 69 to 79. And then his son Titus, who actually was the general who led the conquering of Jerusalem in 70 AD. Titus reigned, and he reigned just a short time in 79 to 81. And then when Titus was through reigning, when he died, his brother Domitian took the throne, and this is the little horn there of Daniel. And he reigned and ruled from 81 to 96 AD. I see you got 11 of these. Daniel saw 10. He saw the little horn come up, that's Domitian, but he saw 3 get uprooted. And so number 11 becomes number 8. Now, when John saw this in Revelation 17, he wrote about it. We read it out of Daniel 7. Now let me read Revelation 17, verse 7 to 11. The angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I'll tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. I'll explain all that next week. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. Here is the mind which hath wisdom. Now watch this, friends. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings. So when John sees this, he says there's 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and another is not yet come, and when he cometh he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. John saw this same beast over here in Revelation 17. But when John saw it, you see, the 3 had already been uprooted. Because John wrote this during the reign of Vespasian, between 69 and 79 AD. He did not write Revelation in 96. And as a lot of people will tell you, Revelation 17 tells you when the book was written. So here's what John said. He said there are 7 kings. There's 7 kings. 5 are fallen. Here they are. Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero. 5 are fallen. So when John wrote, these 5 had already ruled and they were gone. Remember, Nero ruled from 54 to 68. So he wrote after 68, didn't he? Because Nero's already fallen. 5 of them have fallen. He said 1 is. That's Vespasian. He ignored the 3 that were uprooted. That had already happened. So he just ignored them. They were insignificant. They never gained the throne. And so they were horns that attempted, you see, to rule and got uprooted. And so he says 1 is. See, Vespasian, that was number 9 over here, with the 3 uprooted, it becomes number 6. Vespasian becomes number 6. John just ignored the 3 uprooted and spoke of 8 instead of 11. And then he says the other's not yet come. 1 is. 5 are fallen, 1 is. The other's not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. This is Titus. And how short was his reign? Ruled from 79 to 81. Just almost insignificant. And he said, the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th. Here's Domitian. See, he was 11 until 3 got uprooted. He's the beast here. He's the one with the mouth speaking great things and blaspheming. He's the one that we saw judged back in Daniel 7. He's the one that persecuted the saints. And so he becomes the 8th. And so we've got him identified. Don't you see, friends, that back here in Daniel 7, we're told the 4th beast is the 4th kingdom upon earth, Rome. The 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, the Caesars. And these are the ones that ruled in the days of Christ and the apostles. The 4th beast of Daniel 7 is the sea beast in Revelation 13. It's the Roman Empire. So when John said, I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, then this is what he saw. He saw the same thing that Daniel saw when he saw that 4th beast. Both of them saw Rome, see. And notice the similarities to what Daniel saw and what John saw. That just nails it down right here. Watch this. He saw 4 beasts come up from the sea. John saw his beast come up from the sea. The C, incidentally, in symbolic and apocalyptic speech, stands for the restlessness of the nations, their restless motion. And I could give you prophetic scripture on that where it defines the sea just exactly that way. Sometimes it stands for peoples and nations and languages and such things, just for the nations and their restless movements. Both come up from the sea. Daniel said the first was like a lion. John said it had the mouth of a lion. Daniel said the second was like to a bear. John said this beast he saw had the feet of a bear. Daniel said that his was like a leopard. John said that his was like a leopard. Daniel said the beast that he saw, this fourth one, had 10 horns. John said the one he saw had 10 horns. Daniel said that his beast had a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. John says his beast had a mouth speaking great things, you see. It's the same thing. So what Daniel saw and sealed, later John revealed. Here's a good way to remember this. What Daniel sealed, John revealed. They saw the same thing. So, friends, the simplicity of the visions there in Daniel 7 is this: 4 successive world empires, Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome, with a great focus upon Rome. And that's where John focuses, because Rome was a persecutor. And the reason that revelation was given to John was to warn him and the church of a great coming persecution by Rome through an emperor named Domitian, who's this eighth, and that this persecution would be a whole lot like what Caesar did, what Nero did. Nero started this persecution, and for a while it subsided. But what John's being shown is it's coming back. The head that was wounded to death there on that beast, which was Nero when he died, that deadly wound is going to be healed. In other words, this beast is going to persecute again. And this is why Revelation's written to warn the church. Now, next week, I'll take you further into Revelation. We've got a lot more things to identify. We'll get into the 666. Pardon me. We'll talk about what that is. We'll talk about all kinds of things next week. I think you'll find it fascinating. Friends, if you'll just stay with me, I know this is a little bit different than anything you've heard, but it's the truth, and we're showing it to you from Scripture. You see, the difference in what I'm doing for you tonight is simply this. Men have their own theories. They have this theory called premillennialism. They bring that theory to the Bible and they try to make the Bible fit their theory, and it doesn't fit. But when you come to the Bible, like you and I are doing, and we're just using Scripture tonight, when you come to the Bible and let it tell you what these things mean, just like we did in Daniel 7:23 when we learned the fourth beast was the fourth kingdom. When you come to Daniel 7:24 and it tells you the 10 horns are 10 kings out of that kingdom, then you know that you're looking at the kings that rule Rome. See? When you come to the Bible, in other words, which is what I've done tonight, and let the Bible speak, then you get the truth. And it's going to be different than what you hear. It doesn't have all these uh, startling events like people want, almost Star Wars and World War III and all this stuff. It doesn't have nuclear bombs flying everywhere. It's just the plain old truth. And a lot of it is just dry facts, but you know what's great about it? It's truth. And so this fourth beast in Daniel's Rome, and so is the one in Revelation 13. And we'll take it from there next week, and we'll finish the study of the beast. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Miguel and I have so enjoyed being with you, and we're delighted to have you watching. For those of you that will watch this on a delayed basis, remember all these videos stay up on our website. You have access to them anytime you want. Watch them over and over again until you learn the material. They will be there for you, Lord willing. So thank you for joining us tonight, and for you that joined later, thank you also for being a part of this study. We are so glad to have you. To all of you tonight, we wish a very wonderful week ahead. And for those as we leave you tonight, we wish you a very pleasant good evening. We look forward, Lord willing, to being in your home next week to finish this study. God bless you. Good night.